So Sonic's made another good movie, huh? Well, I'll show him. We'll show everyone. With Chris Pratt and Keegan-Michael Key and Jack Black as Bowser. Man, Mario, I don't know what's going on with you. That was the hottest news of last year. What we're doing today is we're having a celebratory video for another, in my opinion, great Sonic movie. So let me get all my good Sonic content out. Sonic action figure, got our gamer fuel, old Dreamcast VMU. I love this thing so much. The Sonic Encyclopedia. Can't make that up. Look at this thing. Thank you all my friends that have given me these things over the years. I love you guys. As you guys might know, I am a huge Sonic fan. And I don't treat myself very often, but when I do, I go hard. And so last night on Wednesday, I saw the pre-screening of Sonic the Hedgehog. And I gotta tell you, I was very surprised with the quality that I was given. The first Sonic movie was a good surprise. Whenever you see any of these movies based on video games, they don't really know what they're doing. The problem usually is that you're just a character dropped into a world and they just go do a thing. Right now we're seeing that the Halo show is having a lot of trouble working with the fact that Master Chief just usually goes on a mission. He doesn't have this like rich backstory besides the books. And the show is abandoning the books and all of the video games. None of the producers played any of the video games, so we can see how that can not go well. But luckily, Sonic ain't got any of those problems. This movie was surprisingly chock full of the things that I, as a Sonic fan, wanted to see. Straight off the bat, gonna say spoilers. I know that I might not get into the spoilers late in the video, but I don't want you to have this experience ruined. Please just go watch the movie because it was such a lovely time. So please, go see the movie, then come back and watch this video. Are they gone? Okay, cool. Now we can talk about everything, and I'll get into the stuff that really made me gush later, but I was surprised that at this pre-screening, they had a big no spoilers thing, and I didn't really think that anything would need a spoiler warning, because the main joy of the first movie was the fact that they had those little references throughout, and that the entire movie was basically just a road trip between Sonic the Hedgehog, a video game character, and a regular guy. But the thing about these movies that I like, that's the theme that's running throughout, is friendship. Sonic's always been about that. Everybody's his friend, and if they start off at the villain at the beginning of the game, they either die or they end up becoming his friend, besides Dr. Eggman. So the thing that I love about the movie is that it plays to that. Every one of the characters that you meet ends up becoming his friend, except for, of course, Eggman. And there's, throughout the movie, an A-plot and a B-plot. For those of you that don't know, there's always an A and a B plot in most TV shows or any story really, including movies. The A plot is usually main characters doing a thing. It's the main thing that you see throughout the movie. So if we're talking about Empire Strikes Back, that's when Luke is going off to learn all the stuff with Yoda. But if we're talking about a B plot, that's what everyone else is doing. So in Empire Strikes Back, that's when Han and Leia are off gallivanting and doing everything with the Millennium Falcon. And a lot of the times, A plots and B plots aren't amazing. The main way to identify an A plot and a B plot is to have your meanwhile back at the ranch moment, which is when one character is off doing something and then that moment or scene has kind of wrapped up. Then you meanwhile back at the ranch, and then you go back to your B plot, and you keep going back and forth until they usually meet up during the climax. This movie's B plot is so minimal, I was so happy about it, because the main things that they kept ping-ponging between were what Sonic was doing, what Eggman was doing. Those weren't really disconnected. The main thing that was disconnected, which was a B plot, kind of a C plot, which was what was happening with the humans. The humans had very little to do in this movie, and I loved it. A lot of people online were saying like, oh, there's not very much humans in this. There's just Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. That's exactly what I wanted to see, and luckily, they get a lot of stuff to do in this movie. Frankly, besides the introduction of Tails, it felt like the plot of the Sonic 3 game, where you have Knuckles come out, he wants to protect the Master Emerald, and then Eggman dupes him out of it. Very simple plot, and I think they did a good amount with it. And my main problem with B-plots is that they usually don't have to do with the movie if it's a sitcom. Let's say that one character is off doing something, and then another character is doing something completely separate. Like they're having their own little turmoil, who cares? This one was about the marriage of Donut Lord's wife's sister. So I was not super invested in that, and I could see it be like, oh, maybe the parents might think this is kind of funny. But that actually played into the fact that her entire wedding was a psyop. It was completely fabricated so that they could get to Sonic. So by the time Sonic arrives, that B-plot is wrapped up because it technically was all fake. So I thought that was great because I didn't want to deal with that B-plot, and as soon as it gets connected, It goes away. Doesn't even matter. It's actually now about Sonic again. And the thing that I loved about that is that was the way that they introduced Gun. They actually introduced the Gun agency in this movie by having them fake a wedding, which I think is hilarious. The thing that I loved about this movie is that it really didn't take itself too seriously. And I think you kind of got to do that when it's Sonic the Hedgehog being voiced by Ben Schwartz, and he's just making all of these ad-libs, as well as Jim Carrey. Both of them made a bunch of improvs I didn't super like. During the emotional climax of the movie, where we're getting this big betrayal from Eggman, he made a Limp Bizkit joke. Awful. It legitimately had enough breathing room that it made it seem like they thought there was going to be a big laugh, and then Sonic falls from the sky and interrupts the moment. Terrible. I don't know why they left that in the movie. Honestly, I think they just let Ben Schwartz and Jim Carrey just keep ad-libbing, and they're like, we'll put it in regardless, which I think is fine. And that also brings me to the next thing that I really love about this movie and the last Sonic movie, and I brought up in the last video, which is the fact that these movies know what they are. I mentioned the fact that this movie doesn't take itself very seriously, but primarily the benefit of that is that the movie has this lighthearted tone. And so when you have this just complete joke factory of people just bouncing off the wall with references and stuff, some of those references can land and some of those jokes can be pretty funny. There's one joke in particular I really liked. But the fact that whenever you have a sentimental moment or something that's really impactful because it's serious, it hits harder. And I thought that that was really good because the contrast between those moments was actually very cathartic. There's a moment where Sonic and Tails are talking, and they bring up the fact that they're both kind of outcasts. And you have this really sweet moment of Tails, who, in the Sonic franchise, just looks up to Sonic no matter what. And you see that this is probably the best moment of his life, that he's hanging out with his hero. And we see that heroism is important to Sonic. So they have this kind of symbiotic relationship where Tails wants to look up to a hero, and Sonic wants to be a hero to somebody. And then we see that in the third act, there's an issue with that because Tails gets hurt, and then Sonic doesn't feel like a hero anymore. So now he has to redeem himself. So that arc is actually pretty great, and it stems from the fact that the movie's just all jokes. So whenever you have this really key, beautiful moment, it hits harder than most. And that brings me to the fact that a lot of the stuff that I praised the last movie for is here but better in the new movie. The whole theme of probably all of these movies is going to be the fact that friendship's important. Being lonely or isolating yourself from your friends or just hanging out with robots isn't very healthy. We see that Sonic still has his little family with Donut Lord and his wife, and we see that every other character that's introduced is dealing with some sort of loneliness. We have Eggman, who was isolated on a mushroom planet, and he honestly didn't seem to mind besides the fact that he just wasn't on Earth to conquer it. And then we have Knuckles, who has been working his entire life to protect the Master Emerald and has neglected any sort of social interaction. And then we have Tails, who's a sort of outcast that isolated himself because he thought that everybody thought he was weird. And all of them then converge on the fact that Sonic represents friendship and having a healthy relationship, while Dr. Eggman represents the complete opposite and being isolated and wanting to control everything. So honestly, the movie is just the other characters wrestling with this, where Tails is moving towards Sonic while Knuckles is moving towards Eggman, and we see the dichotomy of that and how that actually impacts their mental health slightly. So I thought that that was really good. We see that Knuckles kind of gets more edgy, but then realizes how toxic Eggman is, while Tails just gets happier and happier, and they have a really good friendship. So I thought that this did a really good job of solidifying the fact that these movies are going to be about friendship. So that finally leads me into the fact that this movie, just full of references that I love. This franchise is taking a huge page out of the Marvel book, where let's just put in a bunch of references straight from any encyclopedia about Sonic that all of the fans are gonna love. The coffee shop that Agent Stone makes is called Mean Bean, after Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, the video game. Sonic again strikes a bunch of poses that we've seen him do in the video games. Tails ends up flying the tornado, and Dr. Eggman, in the last act, has a giant mech. So these are things that are kind of mild spoilers, you've seen them in the trailers, but if you haven't left yet, get ready for the biggest spoilers that are going to completely ruin the movie for you. Which is that the Master Emerald is a bunch of the Chaos Emeralds put together. I don't really think that's canonical whatsoever, and I think it was just a way for them to get all the Chaos Emeralds in one place. And then the Master Emerald gets broken, and all the Chaos Emeralds come out. And Sonic's in his dire hour, in his darkest night, as we look on the heroic journey. And then he goes supersonic, and he just blasts through Eggman's giant mech. Oh my god. The fact that he actually goes supersonic in the movie, I really am surprised how much they're just letting all of these cool moments just happen. They're not really hiding them for later. I thought that that wasn't even gonna happen for a couple of movies, and that they were really gonna save it, and that in this movie, they were probably gonna use the Master Emerald for something. No. It just happens. He goes supersonic, and it's in the perfect moment, and he just blasts through Eggman's giant robot, and it's incredibly cathartic. And it looks so good. And for me, it became the moment where I realized that this movie franchise could do whatever they wanted. I mentioned it in our last video, and I was still completely surprised when it happened because I didn't think that they would go that far. Speaking of going that far, I'm curious if the director and the writers think that they don't have very much time left with this Sonic franchise, because they said that they're trying to make this big cinematic universe. The problem in my mind being that the mid-credit scene was Shadow the Hedgehog. They teased Shadow the Hedgehog for the next movie. I was really surprised how immediately they're like, no, if this works, we're just going for it. We're just going to Sonic Adventure 2, and then maybe we'll just keep jumping game to game. They went from the first Sonic game to Sonic 2 and 3 kind of smushed together, and then I thought they were gonna go for Robot Sonic, because the whole point of Eggman is that he has a bunch of robots. But once he finds the Chaos Emeralds, he wants to power more of his machines. And I think that Metal Sonic is a really good version of that it shows this cold, calculating version of Sonic who's really fun and exciting. No, they're doing Shadow. They're solidifying the fact that this is all about friendship and loyalty and family by just jumping in with the edgiest dude that has none of those things when you first meet him. So I'm really excited to see how they deal with Shadow, and his design looked a little weird, but frankly, I'm super on board. So this series is really going out of its way to just tell the audience, you like Sonic? You're gonna get it. You're gonna get what you want from Sonic here. And so much so that my brother legitimately, while we were watching the movie, just kept leaning over to me and saying, did you write this? Did you write this thing? And I mean, specifically me, I love the song Uptown Funk. They danced to it in the movie. They made a bunch of, they made a Rock and Vin Diesel joke that I really liked that had nothing to do with anything else. And I think The Rock and Vin Diesel are very funny. So the movie, for me, felt very personal. But honestly, the theater I went to, which of course it was an early screening, but there wasn't anybody that I saw that didn't love the movie. While we were leaving the theater, I saw nothing but people that were very excited and talking about how this franchise could go. So the thing that I love about this new franchise, honestly, and apparently cinematic universe, is that it took the stuff that was really working about their safe bets that I mentioned in our last video, about making it about friendship and family, and just having those core references for Sonic, and just running with it, just really hyping it up and making so many references that I just kept like, it was just a dopamine hit of like, yeah, oh my god, they just keep going with that. The only thing that really lagged for me were the improv jokes, which I think were just for general audiences to be like, ah, hey, there's Jim Carrey making a bunch of those jokes, or Ben Schwartz making whatever. But Tails was super nice. Idris Elba as Knuckles was the biggest treat ever, because we usually get a Knuckles that's just really dumb. This Knuckles was very honor-bound and very hard-headed, and I think that that was probably the best way that they could play him. He was basically Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think worked out just fine. So I think that this movie is incredibly cathartic for most Sonic fans, and I think filmmaking-wise was written very cleverly. That they kept all of those references that you like, but they're really just barreling down all of our favorite parts of the Sonic franchise. And I don't think that's particularly a bad idea when you're just making a franchise that you want people to immediately like. So I appreciate the fact that they didn't dwell on any of those B-plots, that they just stuck with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and that we see that the next movie is going to be pretty crazy. So I'm very excited for it. I hope you guys are too. And thank you for listening to I know this is a little bit less structured than most of our videos, but I hope you enjoyed my initial thoughts of the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and I'm excited to see how it goes. But if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna read up on my Sonic lore getting ready for the Sonic 3 movie. And the Knuckles TV show, apparently Paramount Plus don't know what to make themselves. So they're doing Star Trek, Halo, and now they're doing a Knuckles TV show. And I can't wait for it. So I'm gonna read up, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Let's see here. Look at this boy. Look at him. Amazing.